Humanity had come a long way. Just a few centuries ago, Earth was bound to its single star, its people struggling with the challenges of survival and exploring only a small corner of their world. But now, they had unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel, and the stars themselves were within their reach. This new era of exploration had brought them face to face with mysteries beyond their wildest imagination. It was in this age of discovery that humanity received the message. The first signal came as a quiet hum in the deep void of space. At first, no one noticed. It was just one of the many random signals that space seemed to throw at explorers. But then, after a few more similar signals, Earth's space agencies began to take notice. After all, humanity had never received anything quite like this. It wasn't just a random noise. It was an organized series of patterns, words, codes, and symbols, clearly not of human origin. The message itself was strange and cryptic. It spoke of a cosmic event, an unstoppable force that would sweep across the galaxy, destroying worlds and civilizations in its path. It warned that those who were not prepared would face total annihilation. The message was not clear on what this wave of destruction was, but it spoke of a time in the near future when it would strike. Yet the message was not a plea for help, nor was it sent with any sense of urgency. It was almost as if it expected everyone to ignore it. And that's exactly what most of the galaxy did. The advanced civilizations that received this message simply dismissed it. The Xalrath, a species known for their advanced technology, laughed at the idea. They had been around for thousands of years, and their scientists were sure that nothing could harm them. The Valorians, another spacefaring species who had colonized multiple star systems, saw the warning as a mere superstition. They believed their shields and advanced systems were impenetrable. Even the mysterious Corian collective, known for their deep knowledge of the cosmos, sent back a reply stating that they did not believe in the impending doom and chose to focus on their own research. Humanity, however, took a different approach. The leaders of Earth, still new to the galactic community, were more cautious. They had already been through the struggles of their own history, wars, natural disasters, and near extinction. The idea that an unknown cosmic force could destroy them resonated with their deepest fears. They couldn't ignore the message. Humanity's curiosity and sense of responsibility pushed them to act where others had turned away. A special committee of scientists, engineers, and diplomats was formed. Their mission was to decipher the full meaning of the message and prepare humanity for the threat, whatever it was. As they analyzed the transmission, they discovered more details that pointed to a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. The wave wasn't just a burst of energy. It was a force that could warp space itself. Entire planets would be wiped from existence, their systems torn apart. The committee had a choice: prepare and risk a possible threat that might never come, or do nothing and risk losing everything if the warning turned out to be true. The decision wasn't an easy one. Many in the committee still doubted the authenticity of the message, but in the end, it was the collective will of humanity that made the final decision. They would act, even if no one else did. The first step was to send out their own message, a message of warning. Humanity's space vessels, equipped with the latest technology, were sent across the galaxy to make contact with the civilizations that had received the initial signal. They would carry the message of hope and caution, urging others to take action. If no one else was willing to believe, humanity would do so on their own. The humans did not go with a forceful tone or demands. They did not threaten or pressure anyone. Instead, their message was simple: "We have received your warning. We believe it. Join us in preparing for what lies ahead, or face the consequences alone." It was a plea for cooperation, a humble request from one species to another. As the human ships left Earth's atmosphere and headed out toward distant stars, the uncertainty weighed heavily on the hearts of those who sent them. Would anyone listen? Would anyone care? Or would humanity face the cosmic wave alone, struggling to survive while the rest of the galaxy continued on, as if nothing was wrong? The journey ahead was long, and the unknown stretched out before them like an endless void. But humanity had made their choice. They had chosen to act, to reach out to others, and to warn them of the disaster that was coming. And in doing so, they hoped to change the fate of the galaxy, one species at a time. The human ship, the Vanguard, cut through the darkness of space, its sleek, metallic hull glinting under the distant stars. On board, the crew members were nervous but determined. They had left Earth with one mission in mind: to warn the Izar, a peaceful and advanced civilization, about the coming cosmic disaster. Earth's scientists had believed that if they could just reach the Izar, they could make them understand. If anyone could prepare for the unknown, it would be the Izar, with their knowledge and technological power. The Izar were a species of towering, graceful beings who lived in floating cities on the gas giant Zorath. Their skin shimmered in shades of blue and violet, their long limbs moving with a fluidity that seemed to defy gravity. The Izar were not warlike. They had spent centuries focused on peace, science, and harmony with the universe. They had built an empire not through force, but through wisdom and understanding. Their cities, suspended in the clouds of Zorath, were marvels of engineering, full of lush gardens, sparkling waterfalls, and clean, efficient energy sources. As the Vanguard entered the orbit of Zorath, the crew's excitement mixed with nerves. They knew the stakes were high, but they also knew that the Izar were a proud and cautious people. Humanity's warning might not be enough to persuade them. Still, they had to try. The Izar greeted them with polite curiosity, their towering forms moving gracefully as they boarded the Vanguard to meet the humans. The leader of the Izar delegation, a wise elder named Teleris, studied the humans with a gentle gaze. "You have traveled far to deliver this message," Teleris said in a voice that echoed like a calm breeze. "But we have no reason to believe that this so-called wave will affect us. We have seen many such warnings before, and none have come to pass." The humans, led by Captain Ilara Drake, explained the details of the message they had received. They spoke of the strange energy wave that would soon sweep across the galaxy, and how they believed it could destroy entire star systems. They even shared data from their own research, showing that there was no known defense against the wave. Teleris listened carefully, his expression unreadable. The Izar had never encountered a threat like this. Their advanced technology had allowed them to observe countless other species, but they had never needed to defend against something like the wave. To them, the idea that something so mysterious could endanger their world seemed impossible. "You are not the first to bring such a message," Teleris said after a long pause. "Many have tried before you, but we do not fear what we do not understand. Our people have lived in peace for millennia, and we trust in the harmony of the universe." Captain Ilara understood the Izar's hesitation, but she pressed on. "We are not here to cause fear. We simply want you to consider the possibility that this wave is real. If you do not prepare, you could lose everything." The Izar leader was silent for a moment, considering the human's words. The crew of the Vanguard felt a mix of frustration and hope. They knew that time was running out. They couldn't afford to wait for the Izar to make up their minds. The wave was coming, and if the Izar refused to act, the consequences could be disastrous. After a long discussion, Teleris finally spoke. "Perhaps it is worth investigating. We will allow you to remain here for a while. You may show us your technology and methods, and we will evaluate your claims. But know this: if your warnings are false, we will not tolerate further interference in our peaceful existence." It wasn't a victory, but it was a chance. The humans were allowed to stay on Zorath and demonstrate their technology. They worked tirelessly with the Izar scientists, showing them their energy shields and space travel techniques, hoping to prove that they were not simply paranoid. Slowly, the Izar began to take notice. Over the following weeks, Captain Ilara and her team worked alongside the Izar engineers, sharing their knowledge and technology. As they did, they noticed something that surprised them. The Izar, who had once been so sure of their own safety, began to ask more questions. They were curious, interested in understanding what made the human technology so different. It wasn't just the shields or energy systems, it was the way the humans approached problems. They combined advanced technology with resourcefulness, finding solutions where others saw obstacles. The Aesir, once so certain that nothing could threaten them, were beginning to see things differently. They hadn't yet admitted that the wave was real, but they had started to acknowledge that humanity might know something they didn't. One evening, as Captain Ilara looked out over the floating city of Zeroth, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. It was a small step, but it was a step forward. The Aesir were listening. They were beginning to believe. As the days passed, more and more Aesir citizens came to the vanguard to see the humans' technology for themselves. Some were still skeptical, but others were starting to open their minds. It was clear that humanity's persistence was starting to make an impact. But the most important question remained: would the Aesir be willing to join humanity in preparing for the coming disaster? Or would they, like so many other civilizations, choose to ignore the warning and face the unknown alone? The days on Zeroth were growing tense. As Captain Ilara Drake and her crew continued their work with the Aesir, the realization that the galaxy might be on the brink of disaster began to sink in. The Aesir, though initially skeptical, had become more open-minded after seeing humanity's technology firsthand. Yet, despite this growing understanding, they still hadn't fully accepted the reality of the cosmic wave. Talaris, the wise elder of the Aesir, had agreed to further research, but he remained unconvinced that anything needed to be done. Time, however, was running out. While the Aesir focused on their own studies, humanity's outreach efforts continued. Ships carrying human ambassadors, scientists, and engineers ventured to other civilizations who had received the warning. Most of these species, like the Aesir, refused to believe that a cosmic force could destroy their advanced societies. They had lived long lives of peace and prosperity, never encountering any truly existential threats. The Tsalrath, proud of their advanced technology, thought it impossible that anything could penetrate their vast defenses. The Valorians, deeply entrenched in their empire, dismissed the warning as a baseless fear, believing that their mighty fleets and weapons could handle anything. It was a hard truth to face. Humanity's pleas were falling on deaf ears, but Captain Ilara and her team refused to give up. They continued to send messages, meeting with leaders, offering assistance, and urging everyone to prepare for the worst. The message remained the same: we may be small, but we believe in survival, and we ask you to believe too. Back on Zeroth, the humans were getting closer to a breakthrough with the Aesir. Slowly, the Aesir began to see that their passive approach might not be enough. In their floating cities, they had always relied on their harmony with nature and their advanced sciences to protect them. But even with all their knowledge, they had never faced an unknown force like the one described in the warning. Talaris convened a meeting with the Council of Aesir Elders to discuss their findings. The Council, as expected, remained unconvinced. "There is no need for panic," one elder, Galeth, insisted. "We have no proof that this wave will come. Why disrupt the peace we have built? Why risk throwing our society into turmoil?" Talaris, however, disagreed. He had spent countless years studying the stars and the flow of cosmic energy. He had seen patterns that others hadn't. After spending time with the humans, he had begun to feel a growing sense of unease. There was something about their insistence that struck a chord with him. He had never seen their kind of determination, that willingness to fight for the survival of all, not just themselves. "We must prepare," Talaris said, his voice carrying the weight of his age. "We cannot ignore the possibility that this wave is real. And if we do nothing, we risk everything we've worked for." His words weren't popular, but they were enough to convince a few of the other elders to reconsider. Galeth, still wary, reluctantly agreed to begin joint training with the humans. They would begin testing the human technology, shields, energy dispersal methods, and the other advanced systems humanity had brought. The goal was not to prepare for war, but to learn how to survive. Meanwhile, The humans continued their outreach to other civilizations, but something unexpected happened. The Jailan, a race of highly intelligent traders and diplomats, began to show interest in what humanity was offering. The Jailan had a reputation for being both wise and cunning, able to broker peace deals across the galaxy. They had always prided themselves on their neutrality, never taking sides in the affairs of other races. But the warning of the coming wave seemed to stir something deep within their collective consciousness. The Jailan weren't convinced that the wave would destroy everything, but they were curious. Their interest in humanity grew, not out of fear, but out of respect for the humans' refusal to ignore the problem. It wasn't often that a young species would challenge the wisdom of ancient races, but humanity's bravery and persistence were undeniable. The Jailan offered a tentative agreement. They would help humanity, but only on one condition. The humans would need to share their scientific knowledge with them. The Jailan had always traded in information, and they saw this as an opportunity to learn from humanity's ingenuity. It wasn't a full alliance, but it was a step in the right direction. Ilara received the news with mixed feelings. She was glad that someone was finally listening, but the Jailan's offer came with a price. Humanity was still small compared to the ancient civilizations of the galaxy. They couldn't afford to give away too much. Still, this was the best offer they had gotten in a long time. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Captain Ilara knew that the coming wave would require all the help they could get. They could not save the galaxy alone, but maybe, just maybe, they could convince enough civilizations to join them. The Izar were still hesitant, the Jailan were interested, and other species were starting to listen. But time was running out, the cosmic wave was approaching, and humanity had to make sure they weren't the only ones ready for it. As Ilara stood on the observation deck of the Vanguard, watching the stars pass by, she couldn't help but feel a small spark of hope. The galaxy was vast, and the odds were long. But for the first time, humanity wasn't standing alone. They had made allies, even if they were reluctant. And with each new ally, they were one step closer to surviving the impossible. As the human crew aboard the Vanguard worked tirelessly with their new allies, the galaxy began to take notice. The Jailan had agreed to share their knowledge, and although the Izar remained hesitant, their cooperation had started to grow. Still, the vast majority of civilizations continued to ignore the warning. They were content to believe that nothing could threaten their long-standing peace. Captain Ilara Drake knew the reality of their situation. With every passing day, more and more evidence suggested that the wave was real. The scientists on the Vanguard had observed anomalies in the cosmos, shifts in gravitational fields, bursts of strange energy, and all signs pointed to an impending disaster. Yet most of the galaxy refused to believe. Despite this, humanity persisted. They reached out to species beyond the Izar and the Jailan, urging them to prepare. Each time, their messages were met with doubt, dismissal, or, at best, polite indifference. The most stubborn civilizations were the Valorians and the Salrath. The Valorians, with their immense military power, believed that no cosmic wave could harm them. The Salrath, proud of their advanced technology, scoffed at the idea of an invisible force destroying their empire. One day, an unexpected transmission came through. It was from the Valorians, and it contained a direct challenge. Their fleet, which had long been the most powerful in the galaxy, was approaching the human fleet near the border of Valorian space. The message was clear. If you wish to prove that this wave is real, we challenge you to demonstrate your technology against our best defenses. Only then will we consider your warning. Captain Ilara read the message twice, her mind racing. The Valorians wanted to test humanity, to push them to their limits. It wasn't a full confrontation, but it was certainly a test of their strength. Ilara knew that the humans had nothing to prove in terms of military might. They had no fleet that could rival the Valorians' power. But the Valorians didn't want to understand the wave. They'd wanted proof, and humanity had no choice but to try. Captain, Lieutenant Rico spoke up, breaking Ilara's thoughts. We can't possibly win against them. Their fleet is massive." "I know," Ilara replied. "But we don't need to win. We need to make them see the truth." The humans had a plan. Instead of using their limited firepower to fight, they would use their advanced energy shields to demonstrate how their technology could survive the impossible. They would endure the Valorians' assault long enough to show that their shields could withstand anything, proving that the wave could be real. And that preparation was the key to survival. The challenge began with a show of power. The Valorian fleet appeared on the edge of the system, their massive ships dwarfing the vanguard. A signal crackled over the comms. "Prepare yourselves, humans," came the cold voice of the Valorian commander. "We will test your defenses now." Ilara braced herself. This wasn't a battle she wanted, but it was a necessary step. The crew of the Vanguard activated their advanced energy shields, designed to withstand extreme cosmic events. They had tested them on smaller scales, but this was the first time they would face something on the scale of the Valorian fleet. The Valorians opened fire, their powerful weapons unleashing torrents of energy toward the Vanguard. The ship shuddered under the impact, but the shields held firm. With each blast, Ilara could feel the weight of the pressure building, but she refused to back down. This was humanity's moment to prove that they weren't afraid of the unknown, and that their technology could survive what others believed impossible. For what felt like hours, the Valorians bombarded the human ship, but the shields remained intact. The crew watched in awe as their technology held steady. The Valorians were stunned. They had expected to see the humans' defenses fail, or at the very least, to see them retreat in fear. But instead, they witnessed a resilience they hadn't anticipated. Finally, the Valorian fleet ceased fire. The comms crackled again. "You have proven your strength, humans," the Valorian commander said, a note of begrudging respect in his voice. "But strength alone does not prove the existence of the wave. You will need more than shields to convince us." Captain Ilara nodded. "We never claimed that shields were the answer, but they are a symbol of our commitment to survive, and they show that we are ready for what's coming. The wave is not just a weapon. It is a force that we must all be prepared for, and we hope that you will choose to join us in this fight." The Valorians were silent for a long time. They had not expected humanity to endure so much, nor had they expected such a diplomatic response. They had assumed that the humans were just another species desperate for attention, but now they were seeing something different. Finally, the Valorian commander spoke. "We will consider your warning. You have shown us that you are not to be dismissed. We will speak with our council and decide what actions, if any, we will take." It wasn't a victory. The Valorians hadn't yet agreed to prepare for the wave, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. Humanity's persistence had forced the Valorians to think. Perhaps, just perhaps, they would now take the warning seriously. As the Vanguard moved away from the Valorian fleet and continued its journey, Captain Ilara couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity wasn't the largest, the strongest, or the oldest civilization in the galaxy, but they had something that none of the others did, a willingness to fight for survival, no matter the odds. And that might just be enough to save the galaxy. Captain Ilara Drake stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the stars stretch into long lines as the ship traveled deeper into the galaxy. Despite the hard-fought moment with the Valorians, she knew there was still much more to do. The galaxy was vast, and even though some had begun to listen, most were still in denial. Time was running out, and humanity needed every ally it could find. But just as things seemed bleak, an unexpected transmission came through. It wasn't from another human ship or even from one of the larger galactic powers they had been reaching out to. This one was different. The voice on the other end was calm and soft, yet it carried an authority that was unmistakable. "Captain Drake, we have been observing your actions closely," the voice said. "We believe that we can help." Ilara's brow furrowed in confusion. "Who is this?" she asked. The voice responded, "We are the Nixians, a race that has lived on the fringe of the galaxy for centuries. We have seen many things come and go. And we have seen your warnings, Captain. We understand that the wave is real. Ilara's heart raced. The Nixians were not a known race to most of the galaxy. They were secretive, often staying away from the politics and wars of others. They had been observed in passing, but no one knew much about them. The idea that they were willing to help was a small but significant ray of hope. What do you mean by help? Ilara asked cautiously. We have technology, the Nixian voice continued. Technology that could help shield entire worlds, not just individual ships. We have been working on it for centuries, but we never thought it would be needed. Until now. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. The thought of an entire planet being shielded from the wave was exactly what they needed. The Nixians weren't just offering their help, they were offering the key to survival for entire civilizations. Why are you willing to help us? Ilara asked. Why now? There is no time left for politics, Captain, the Nixian replied. We believe that the wave is a force beyond anything the galaxy has faced. We have seen signs of its approach for years, and we have waited. But now we are certain. If we do not act together, all of us will be lost. It was the first time anyone had spoken so plainly. No more doubts, no more hesitation. The Nixians were taking the threat seriously. Ilara turned to her crew, who were now gathered on the bridge, listening to the conversation with growing interest. They had been fighting for this moment, for someone to believe them. And now it was happening. She needed to make the right decision. Are you willing to meet with us in person? Ilara asked, her voice steady but full of anticipation. We need to discuss how we can join forces. There was a brief silence before the Nixian voice answered. We will meet you, but not on your terms. We have our own ship, and we will come to you. Prepare yourself. The communication cut off abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Ilara looked around at her officers, each of them processing what had just happened. The Nixians were going to meet them, but this was not the standard way of doing things. The Nixians were known for their independence, and they had made it clear that they would not be dictated to. It didn't matter, Ilara thought. It didn't matter that the Nixians didn't follow the usual galactic protocols. What mattered was that they were willing to work with humanity. This was a huge turning point. Hours later, a Nixian ship appeared on the radar. It was sleek and dark, its design completely unfamiliar to the human crew. The ship didn't match any known style from other galactic races, and there was an eerie quality to its quiet movement. It almost felt as if the ship was made from the very darkness of space itself. As the Nixian ship docked with the Vanguard, Ilara stood with her crew, waiting to meet the unexpected visitors. The air on the bridge was thick with anticipation. The doors to the airlock hissed open, and a figure stepped through. It was tall and slender, draped in flowing robes of dark fabric that shimmered in the low light. Their skin, a shade of deep violet, seemed to blend with the shadows around them. Their eyes were a glowing, almost ethereal white, and their movements were graceful, as if they were more a part of the space around them than separate from it. I am Sarah, the Nixian said in a voice that was both calming and commanding. We have come to offer our assistance. Ilara, ever the diplomat, extended her hand. I'm Captain Ilara Drake. Thank you for coming. Zira regarded her for a moment before replying. We will assist you, Captain, but understand this. The wave is unlike any force we have ever encountered. It is a force of destruction, yes, but it is also a force of change. The universe will not be the same after it passes. Ilara nodded. That's why we need to be ready. Not just for the wave itself, but for what comes after. We can't afford to be divided when it hits. Sira's glowing eyes narrowed, and Ilara could sense that the Nixian was weighing her words. Finally, Xera spoke again. We will help you. But know this, we will not simply stand by. The Nixians have seen what others have failed to see, and we will do what is necessary to survive. Ilara's heart swelled with hope. Humanity had gained a new ally. But she knew that the real challenge was still ahead. The galaxy was still divided, and the wave was still coming. But now, at least humanity wasn't alone. The news of the Nixian support spread quickly throughout the galaxy. For the first time, Captain Elara Drake felt that there was hope. Humanity wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. They had gained the trust of the Nixians, and with their help, the possibility of survival seemed real. But even as the alliances were beginning to take shape, the universe was still full of uncertainty. The Valorians, who had once been skeptical, had agreed to a meeting with the Vanguard. However, the Jailan, who had been intrigued by humanity's persistence, remained cautious. Even with the Nixians offering their advanced technology, many races still refused to believe that the cosmic wave was anything more than a myth. On the Vanguard, Elara sat in her command chair, looking over the data streams coming from all corners of the galaxy. It was a quiet day, but she knew it wouldn't last. They had made progress, but it still wasn't enough. They needed more. They needed the galaxy to come together, and fast. Captain, Lieutenant Rico called from his station, breaking Elara from her thoughts. "We've received a message from the Valorians. They're ready to meet." Elara straightened in her seat. The Valorians were the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and their willingness to even consider working with humanity was a huge step. But she knew that it wouldn't be easy to convince them. They were proud and powerful, and they had their own agenda. It would take more than shields and technology to earn their trust. "Prepare a shuttle," Elara said, her voice steady. "We're going to meet them in person." The Valorian fleet was stationed just outside the human-controlled space, waiting. Their ships were massive, their designs sleek and formidable. As Elara's shuttle approached their flagship, the tension was thick in the air. This meeting could decide the fate of the entire galaxy. As they docked with the Valorian flagship, Elara and her crew were met by a group of Valorian officers. The leader, Commander Arkan, stepped forward, his tall frame towering over everyone in the room. His armor gleamed in the light, and his eyes were cold but calculating. "Captain Drake," Commander Arkan said, his voice deep and commanding. "I hope your visit here is worth the time." Elara didn't flinch. She had dealt with much worse. "We've come to offer a partnership," she said. "The wave is real, and if we don't act now, everything will be lost." Arkan raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you so certain that this wave is anything more than a rumor?" "We have evidence," Elara replied, keeping her voice calm. "Cosmic anomalies, energy surges, things that cannot be explained by normal means. We've seen the warning signs, and we've studied them. We're not just here to ask for help. We're here to offer a solution." Commander Arkan eyed her carefully. "And what exactly are you offering?" "We've gained the support of the Nixians," Elara explained. "Their technology can shield entire worlds, and with their help, we can prepare for the wave. But we need your fleet. We need your strength." There was a long pause as Arkan considered her words. Finally, he spoke. "The Valorians don't join alliances. We've built our empire alone, and we don't rely on anyone." Elara nodded. "I understand. But this isn't about strength or power. This is about survival. If we don't join forces, we won't survive the wave. The galaxy will be left in pieces. You'll be left in pieces." There was silence for a moment, and Elara could see the wheels turning in Arkan's mind. He was a strategic thinker, but even he couldn't ignore the weight of the situation. "I'll consider your offer, Captain," Arkan said finally. "But know this, the Valorians will not follow anyone. We will fight this on our own terms." Elara held her ground. "If that's what it takes. But the wave doesn't care about terms. It will destroy everything, and you will need allies. It's your choice." The Valorian stood still, not reacting, but Elara could tell that her words had struck a chord. Commander Arkan didn't agree with her, yet, but there was a glimmer of doubt in his eyes. That was all Elara needed. As Elara and her crew left the Valorian ship, the weight of the meeting settled in her chest. It hadn't been a victory, but it had been a step in the right direction. The Valorians were still reluctant, but they had agreed to consider joining the fight. That was progress. Back on the Vanguard, Ilara stared at the star-filled expanse ahead. The universe was a vast and complicated place, and humanity was just one small part of it. But for the first time, she felt that they might have a chance to make a difference. Their mission wasn't over. They still had to convince the rest of the galaxy to act. The wave was coming, and no one was truly ready. But humanity had allies now. The Nixians, the Valorians, and even the Aesir were starting to see the truth. With every step forward, the galaxy was one step closer to uniting. But they still had a long road ahead. The storm was gathering, and it was only a matter of time before it hit. The moment of truth had arrived. The galaxy was finally beginning to unite, but it was not enough. Time was slipping away, and the cosmic wave was growing closer with each passing day. Despite the efforts of humanity and their new allies, not every civilization had joined the fight. But there was a spark of hope. Hope that perhaps the galaxy could still stand together in the face of this unimaginable threat. On the Vanguard, Captain Ilara Drake stood before a vast holographic display, showing the current state of the galaxy. The Nixians, the Valorians, the Aesir, they were all on board now, but it was clear that not all the races were ready. Some were still hesitant, and others continued to deny the existence of the wave. Ilara's fingers hovered over the control panel as she stared at the map. "We don't have much time left," she murmured. "The wave is less than a week away. If we can't get everyone on board now, it might be too late." Her first officer, Lieutenant Rico, stood beside her. "We've done all we can, Captain. We've warned them. Now, it's up to them whether they want to join us or not." Ilara nodded, but her mind was heavy. The galaxy was so divided, and now, with the wave only days away, the consequences of their failure would be unimaginable. "The only way we survive is together," she said, almost to herself. "If we can't unite now, then we'll have lost everything we fought for." Rico placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's not over yet. You've inspired them. They're listening, Captain. That's more than we had before." Ilara turned to face him, forcing a small smile. "I hope you're right, Rico. But I can't help but feel like we're running out of time." Just then, a transmission came through. It was from the Aesir, one of the last holdouts. Their response had been slow, but now they had finally agreed to meet. The leader of the Aesir, Chancellor Orin, had always been cautious. But with the wave now looming on the horizon, he had no choice but to act. Ilara quickly responded. "This is Captain Ilara Drake of the Vanguard. We're ready to hear your decision." The holographic image of Chancellor Orin flickered into view. He was a tall, elegant figure, his long, silver hair flowing behind him like a stream of starlight. His face was calm, but his eyes were filled with the weight of uncertainty. "We have heard your warnings, Captain," Chancellor Orin began, "but the Aesir have never been one to follow others. We pride ourselves on our independence. This wave, this threat, we did not believe it could reach us. We believed we could survive it alone." Ilara stood tall, her voice firm. "I understand your pride, Chancellor, but this is not about pride anymore. It's about survival. We cannot face the wave alone. Together, we stand a chance. Apart, we fall." The Aesir leader was silent for a long moment. Then his eyes hardened. "Perhaps we were wrong. We see now that the wave is real. And we see now that humanity and your allies are not simply begging for help. You are fighting for something bigger." There was a shift in the room. Ilara could see it, the moment when doubt was replaced by understanding. Chancellor Orin had seen the truth. Finally, the Aesir leader nodded. "You are right, Captain. The Aesir will join you. We will stand together against the wave." Ilara felt a rush of relief flood through her. The Aesir were on board. Now, for the first time, the galaxy truly had a united front. With the Nixians, the Valorians, The Iser and humanity standing together, they could finally begin to prepare for the coming storm. The preparations began immediately. The combined fleets of the galaxy's united races gathered at the center of the galaxy. They were not just going to fight. They were going to survive. The Nixians had provided technology that could shield entire planets, and the Valorians had contributed their formidable fleet, ready to defend any world that needed it. But despite all the preparations, the threat of the wave was still terrifying. No one knew exactly what to expect. It was a force unlike anything they had ever faced, a cosmic wave that could destroy everything in its path. But now they had hope. They had the knowledge, the technology, and the strength to stand together. As the countdown to the wave's arrival began, Captain Elara Drake stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, gazing at the stars. The alliance they had formed was their best chance, but they still had one final test ahead. The wave was coming, and all they could do was wait and hope that the shields would hold, that the strength of their united forces would be enough. And then, the moment came. The wave reached them. A burst of energy so powerful that it seemed to shake the very fabric of space itself washed over the galaxy. The shields of the united fleets flared to life, their energy fields crackling as they absorbed the force of the wave. The galaxy held its breath, waiting. The shields held. The wave passed. The galaxy was alive. The universe had survived. Elara smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek as she looked out at the stars. Against all odds, humanity had saved the galaxy. Not with strength, not with power, but with unity. Together, they had faced the storm, and together, they had won.